My name is Yvonne, and myself, as well as Cathy Keates, will be providing you with some information on the Etta St. Wileman Award for Outstanding Achievement in Career Development. So we might give a couple seconds for others to join us. Um, Feel free to, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat, or you could unmute yourself and just ask your questions live. We'll entertain questions in whatever form you wish to present them. But this session really is to give you some specific information about the award, about where it's going, where we think it should go, where we have put plans, robust plans in place for it to go. So hopefully this will satisfy all your curiosity, as well as providing you with some really good information. So if we could go to the next slide. So as I said before, my name is Yvonne Rodney. Worked for many years in the post-secondary sector, run my own private practice now, Interchange Consulting, and I do 2 days a week with a nonprofit organization called Jewish Vocational Services here in Toronto. My fellow presenter, Cathy Keates, is currently at Queen's. She can tell you a little bit more about herself, but we have a long history of working together when we both worked in the post-secondary sector. So Cathy, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne. And so, yeah, I've worked for about 2 decades in post-secondary career support for students, most recently at Queen's, and I continue to be at Queen's now. We have the portfolio that still includes some oversight of career development and experiential learning, but some of the other parts of the student experience too. And I, like Yvonne, have had the pleasure of being involved in CERIC as a volunteer. And most recently, we're both on the Wileman Award Selection Committee, and it's in our role as participants in that we're sharing these updates and encouraging information and the requests for you to help us change where we see this going and get the word out so that we have a great slate of nominees in our upcoming competitions.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, next slide. So this award is named after Etta St. Wileman. And you kind of go, Etta who? That was me when I first heard about it. Like, who is this person? Where did she come from? Why is there an award named after her? And the reason why I'm talking to you about this is because you might be thinking, well, who would be a likely candidate to be nominated for this award? And I suppose if, Etta was still alive, she was doing her reforms back in 1913, long before many of us were even a dream or a twinkle in anybody's eye. She was advocating as a woman for reforms within the system. So I've put a quote here from a tract she had written, and look at what she's saying. What is wrong with the brains of the nation that the labor market is unorganized, resulting in idleness and distress? Remember, she was pushing for reforms in who should work, what we can do for people who need working. She was feisty. What is the matter with the state administration that no trustworthy centers are provided where the laborer may apply for employment? What is the fault with the thousands yearly given in charity? We find honest, intelligent men and women giving way to apathy and despair in the constantly recurring struggle, hunting jobs. And we see children new to the game of finding work thrown on their own resources to make connections with frequently disastrous results to their afterlives. It sounds like something that could be said now. So this was Etta. Would she have called herself a career development specialist? I doubt it. And the reason why I'm using this quote is that you may know of people who are reformers in their own right. They are advocating for change. They are committed to making change happen. And when we look at who the past presentees have been for the award, we want the award to reflect kind of how Canada looks in all its diversity and complexity and cosmopolitan nature. So Cathy will talk to you about some of the intentional changes we wanted to make to the criteria. But before she goes to that, could we go to the next slide? Before she goes to that, let me tell you a little bit about the history. So I was around when Connexus started for the very first time in a hotel in Markham. And, you know, it was after coming from where the government of Canada with the University of Toronto was doing a lot of work in terms of career development through an organization called NatCon. So out of that, you know, after that period was over, that there was like nothing happening in career development, and CERIC through the Counseling Foundation picked up the mantle. And in that first session, they tried to bring this community back together, and it's grown to what you now know as Connexus, and a great meeting for all people working in career development, whether you come from the nonprofit sector, the profit sector, post-secondary, whatever you do, private practice. This is the richness that comprise what we do. That's what we want to see reflected in the award when we present it each year. Okay, Cathy, over to you.
Thank you. So thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, I mean, in the committee, specifically for the award, what we've been reflecting on is how do we ensure that we recognize and build on the proud history of this award? If you've looked to see our past recipients, they're all amazing, outstanding folks who have made significant contributions to the field. But as Yvonne said, our field is very wide and diverse, and we wanted to make sure, are we setting up the award, how we talk about it, our criteria, so it's the most inclusive and accessible to folks who are making a difference in the career development of Canadians. And so the committee started engaging in our own consultations within the committee itself. And then we went more broadly to have some broader conversations with some of the other CERIC committees. We also last spring hosted a focus group. So a thank you to anyone who might be listening to the recording, who was one of the participants of that focus group. That allowed us to hear from an even wider range of voices about how do you make an award communicate the breadth of what we're interested in here, and invite people to see themselves and their communities inside of who could qualify for this award. And we've also been working within our committee to have greater diversity in the membership of our committee itself. And so we have had some success there. We're trying to be more transparent so folks can see what's going on. We are now listing our committee members on the website. And so it's been a whole process of a couple of years of evolution of some deep conversations with this commitment to being more inclusive and accessible. And so maybe if we can go to the next slide, I can show you what changes we've made to work towards that. So I'll highlight 3 changes. The first is that in the previous award description, we used the word lifetime, and we talked about it as a lifetime achievement award. But in looking at that more sort of critically, we realized that not everyone has had the same opportunity to have a lifetime of opportunity within a field, and that just the word lifetime itself seemed to be having people self-screen out potential nominees because they didn't feel like that fit them. And so we decided to move towards outstanding achievement, which we heard from others and believe is a much broader kind of category. And we're hoping that by saying that, more people feel like they can fit inside of that requirement for the award. The other thing that became loud and clear as we have talked about this and heard from others is that we have to really think about how we talk about leadership, and that sometimes intentionally or unintentionally, when we say leadership, we hear positional leadership. And so that the folks who feel like they could be nominated or could nominate others feel like the person needs to be in a job that is a director or executive director or a university professor or another like formal job that clearly has positional authority and leadership within it. And that is not the intention of this award. The intention is that leadership can be demonstrated in a variety of ways. And leadership is really about change and leading change and impact. And so we have tried to remove the any words that made it seem like it was just positional leadership, and tried to speak in a way that was clearly far broader and open than that. And then the third thing that we did is we increased and upped the language we have in the award criteria around what we refer to as a JEDI orientation, or justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, so that, you know, we're increasing the emphasis that we are putting on prioritizing nominees and achievements that have for folks who contributed within these areas, right? And that is a way to reach out to broader communities and recognize the importance of this in everybody's work and the kinds of achievements that we're looking to make sure get acknowledged here. So those were the key changes. And so now I'm going to switch to some of the process things. So we hope that you're thinking, or are going to start thinking, about who you might nominate, or who you might nudge to nominate others who you see as folks who've had an outstanding achievement in career development. So in terms of submitting a nomination, first I'll say that the specific process is on the website. So I'm going to highlight some of that here, but we'll give you the link later to make sure you can refer back to it for what the specific steps are. But the language that we now have is that we're looking for individuals who've made a significant impact in enhancing the field of career development, regardless of role or position within an organization. So let's think broadly about who that might be. So when you have someone in mind, that's who can be nominated. Anyone you think meets those criteria. And then through the nomination process, you demonstrate how they do meet the criteria.
So can I interject?
Please, Yvonne, yes.
So for example, when you think of somebody, when we hear the word career development, you know, many times we think about a career development, employment, or career counseling, or whatever we may decide career development is. Remember the example I used at the outset with Etta St. John Wileman. She was an advocate, she was a reformer, she was, you know, for changes in the system that would result in enhanced career development for everyone. So think broadly of the term. It's up to you, the nominee, whether you're nominating yourself or somebody else, to make the case for how this person or yourself have contributed to that broader definition of career development.
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne. And we can both confirm the committee is really open to that broad definition. And so if you can make the case, there's a real openness to receiving those kind of nominations. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, in both leadership and then also the just notion of career development and the type of ways you can have an impact on Canadians' career development. So the process itself, once you decide, yes, you're going to move forward with someone, is you complete a nomination form. CERIC has done, I think, a great job of trying to make it really straightforward. It is online. You can take a look at it. And you also, along with the nomination form, which is clearly laid out in terms of specific criteria that's being requested, you also provide 2 letters of support. And so that's to demonstrate some of that breadth and include multiple voices in the nomination beyond just one person submitting the form. Mm-hmm. And then the form itself will go in, and the first review will be by Kay, CERIC's executive director, and that is to help make sure everyone's form is complete. And so she'll go through them, send a note if you missed something, give you a chance to double check that. And so you'll get that note within 48 hours after the deadline and everything's being reviewed. And then for the nominations that are complete, it will be reviewed by the committee. As I mentioned before, we've got a list of the committee membership. There will be some changes year to year over the committee membership as we work to, as I mentioned before, add a variety of voices. And some of us who've been on the committee for a while will cycle out to have some other folks join in. And then as the nominator, you'll be notified by email of the status of the nomination and or confirmation of the award, should you be the successful one, by October 31st. And the award then gets presented at Connexus in January. So the deadline for you to start this is June 30th. And then it works its way through the different levels through the summer and then into the fall, you'll hear back. And then the actual award presentation would be in person and if possible, and an exciting part of the event at the Connexus conference in January. Okay, next slide, please.
Next.
Thank you.
So your role really is to identify, look around, look within, look outside. Who are the people you consider to be deserving nominees? You know, again, can I make a case for this person? We want, like I said, to have a lot more diversity in the awards, and to make this a thing people look forward to at Connexus every year. We need you to share within your network. So maybe you don't know of anybody, but share within your group so that, you know, we get as many nominees as we can, because really what we want to do is to recognize and celebrate the people that you know, that we don't know, that all of Canada doesn't know, that they're blazing trails within their communities, within their groups, and they're creating significant impact, outstanding achievement from your perspective within the field broadly of career development. So they could be mentors, they could be teachers, they could be, just think broadly in terms of the role that CERIC fills and how you could see this person being a how you see this person being a trailblazer within that field. Most people who are nominated for these awards are usually surprised that they are seen in that role. And if you think they need, their accomplishments need to be highlighted and recognized, those are the people we want to hear about. Do you want to add anything else to this, Cathy?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay, next slide.
Next slide, please.
So basically that's it. We're not going to belabor this for long. We want you to get out and start applying, right? So if you want more information, you could go directly to that link that's on the screen right now. When is the deadline again? June 30th?
June 30.
June 30th is the deadline. So get the applications in, tell everyone about it. If you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to anyone from CERIC, and if it's a question that we could answer more specifically, then by all means, they'll make sure that we get it. Okay. Now, next slide. I think we're into our question side.
Yes.
Slide. Don't ask us anything because we don't have the answer for everything in life, but ask us anything you'd want to know.
I mean, we could try, but yeah. I see Deanna has.
You want to know about this award.
Yeah.
So you can come online and raise your hand or whatever, and we'll answer your questions, or you could throw it in the chat and we will try to field those through Rachel. Any questions?
Deanna?
Hi.
Yeah.
In years, okay, we're in 2020. So in 2021, I submitted a nomination, and obviously Lynn Bezanson was amazing. So my person did not win the award. But I was told by Riz at the time that my nominee would be, or my nomination would be carried forward into the next year. Now I notice no one won, or there was no award listed in 2023. And I didn't know if that meant my nomination was considered and what didn't win, or if this transition meant that maybe my nomination wasn't considered. I'm just wondering.
About process.
Yeah, would it still carry forward? Do I have to submit it again? I'm just kind of wondering about that. I had emailed Kay, but I hadn't gotten a response, so I figured I'd ask.
So yeah. Cathy, can you?
I think what I would say is that because we have made a couple of changes in the criteria, and particularly we've upped some of the EDII kinds of things, that I think it would be helpful if you would like to move forward to nominate again and have this candidate considered. It'd probably be worth looking at the new nomination form too, and seeing if, in the light of the things we've been talking about, you want to update the content and your letters of support at all. There's certainly the opportunity to do that. I mean, I'll let Kay reply directly to you by email. She might have some specifics about your specific one, Deanna, too. But certainly it probably would be a good idea to even just re-look at what you've submitted and
in light of the new requirements.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. To make sure you're tying directly to those as best as you can, because your previous submission would have been a bit different. Does that make sense, Deanna?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I'm so excited that you've named someone and you're moving that forward. That's great. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I think the process is, even if your person does not win, you will get feedback to say, thank you for applying, right? So that will be Kay getting back to you regarding that. I saw a question in the chat about, do we have any information about people who have self-nominated, and have any of the winners been self-nominated? I was not on the committee then.
Yeah.
I've recently been in the last 2 years or so. So I can't answer that question specifically. I would say if I was going to take a shot, which would be pretty accurate, 90% of those who won would be nominated by someone else versus self-nomination. However, we have not ruled that out, as people can still nominate themselves. And I think there was a second follow-up question to that. Let me see if I can get it. Would you provide some examples of award winners and what they have done? So the most recent one was Lynn Bezanson. She's a career development specialist. Which institution is she with? Calgary?
I think she's with the Career Development Foundation in Ottawa.
Oh.
If I'm getting the title of the organization correct?
Yes. So she came from that sector. Marilyn Van Norman, who was in post-secondary, and she's written books and done a lot of stuff with career development. She's worked to bring, when I mentioned earlier about the national consultation on career development, she was instrumental when she worked at U of T in getting that to become a national thing, conference for career development. So that's an example of someone else. All the past winners are on the CERIC website, so you can go and just look at them and look at their backgrounds in case you need further information.
Thanks, Yvonne. I also just put in the chat the link to the list of past award winners. And I just think it's wonderful to look at that list. They have done really interesting things that I know I've benefited from in my work in career development. But I'd also just caution that when we look at that list, it really is reflecting who we were able to reach and the past criteria and the past kind of outreach that we've done. And the goal now is that they are all great winners, but we want to now move outside of some of the traditional communities. I mean, we've had a number of university leaders, both staff and faculty members win. We want to make sure that we are getting to, as Yvonne mentioned before, the broader not-for-profit sectors or people in private practice that are having broad impacts. And so I think it might be a good start to look at past winners, but also then to think more broadly than the potential, sectors and the type of nature of work that they have done. We don't want that to streamline our thinking too much.
Yeah. So if you're from a Indigenous community, and of someone in your community who has been like a strong advocate for young people and getting them work or getting them to think about their lives, and like that would be a person you'd want to nominate, right? Within your hub, your circle, there are people who I'm sure who are advocating and making, not only are they talking about it, but they've had such a significant impact, not just on your life, but on the lives of others. These are the people we want to hear about. And we want to be in a wonderful position to say, oh my goodness, we have had so many applicants. What are we going to do? Right? We might have to create more award categories, but that's the place we want to be. And we think you can help us get there.
Yeah. So I'm just watching time and I'm going to have to scoot it in a couple of minutes. So I want to say to start, thank you to everyone who's participated today and thank you to everyone who's watching the video later. And that anything that you can do, both to think about nominations yourself, but also if you have any thoughts for how we can better spread the word about this. CERIC's been doing some great additional outreach recently to try to reach into communities that maybe we haven't been as connected with in the past as we would like to be. So also you as an individual nominating someone, but also thinking about, do you participate in any professional associations or other groups where we could forward this information so that we could share it to a wider audience? We'd also appreciate any support you can give us in that too.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
So following this, we're gonna drop a quick survey. Just tell us, kind of how we did. Was the information useful? What would have been more beneficial for you to hear about, so that if we do this when we do this in the future, we can have it much more robust and specific. So thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great rest of the day. Take some time to, again, follow up, complete the survey, and we look forward to seeing a lot of nominations from you moving forward.